Kraft Mac and Cheese is better than 90s hip-hop. We'll remind you of your childhood without making you feel incredibly old. Kraft Mac and Cheese. Best thing ever.
Brew Strong is brought to you by Blickman Engineering, home of the Riptide. Visit them online at blickmanengineering.com.
Brewers, it's time for the beer radio you've been looking for. This is the show that dispels myths, tackles the toughest topics, and makes no apologies for geeking out on beer. Hosted by two guys that drink before they think, Jamil Zainasheff and John Palmer. This is Brew Strong.
Ka-chow, homebrewers. I'm TC.
And this is Huggy Bear, and you're listening to Brew Strong.
And this is an episode of the Mailsack. And here in the sack with us, we have our special guest, John Hughes.
Hey everyone, always happy to tap the sack with you guys.
Back in the sack again.
There we go. Hopefully you guys have heard John's other shows. PhD, John?
That's correct, yeah. So PhD from UC Davis in microbiology. Ran the Master Brewer Certificate program there for them for the last 4 years. And then before that was at Heretic as Quality Assurance Manager.
So I like to call you Dr. John. I also like to call you Professor John or Dr. Hughes or all of the above. It's obviously a title of respect, but also I enjoyed the play on the Dr. John, etc. But okay, so we are in the mail sack today, and we have a fair amount of shows, a fair amount of questions for you. Jamil has given me the mandate to answer all of your questions, and we answer the newest ones first. You send me a question, it's going on the list. It will be answered in our next show in the mail sack. I don't have a good roll in to Blickman this time. I'm not the master of transitions that Jamil is, but our sponsor, Blickman Engineering, is still our sponsor, Blickman Engineering. Drew is running the show these days. Outstanding individual. We even did a show with Drew. Beyond Drew just being an outstanding person, the products, the quality, it's there, it's been there, it's not going anywhere. I'm a huge fan. Blickman series, the Anvil series, one day potentially on the Pro Brew side. I don't know when, I don't know where, but they do all of the above. And So John, you were running a lab, and I've joked about, and it's not entirely a joke, by the way, that they could get into lab type equipment because, I don't want to say it the wrong way, but there's money in consumables. You buy a fermenter, you keep that fermenter for life. You buy a Petri dish, you're going to buy a bunch more.
Absolutely.
But you running a lab, I don't know about your brewing experience outside of the lab. So I don't know if you've had any experience with the Blickman equipment, or if you were there when Jamil set up, was it the 6-head beer gun to fill bottles of Worry or something like that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and then also every year for the Evil 3, we do, I think we have a 5-head or 6-head to fill growlers of Evil 3 straight off the fermenter for people, yeah. But yeah, no, I actually used to, I got into home brewing, and that's how I found my way into this industry as well as a lot of other people. And I had a Blickman burner, the Hellfire burner. I had a Blickman beer gun. Yeah, I was all over that stuff.
Yeah, and I know you. I know Huggy, you had the pilot system back at No Label. That was I guess everything but the hoses was Blickman. Maybe not your burners. I don't recall. I know you had the burners that were probably the equivalent of the Hellfires. The high BTU. Were they banjos, or did you have the jets back then? I think probably the banjos.
I don't remember. Yeah, I mean, it seemed like it was a pretty pretty good setup. I'm not sure what we had, but it was good quality stuff for sure.
Yeah, you can tell the difference between the banjos and the jets because you can't talk over the jets. The banjos you can have a nice conversation, and Hellfire I believe is at quoted at 200,000 BTU, but John to tell you exactly how many BTUs you really got for it, John Blickman, he didn't lie about his Hellfires and they put out what they put out. Very hot system without all the noise. The kettles, I mean, it's just top to bottom, outstanding equipment, outstanding quality, and unbelievable support. They don't necessarily advertise that they monitor the various Facebook groups that exist out there. I know I'm in the Anvil one because I use the Anvil Foundry. And honestly, if you have an issue, the number one response is call this number, we'll handle your problem. And that's far faster and better than waiting for other group members to tell you what they think. Because you call that number and their tech guy, whose name I'm forgetting now, I apologize. He's got your answer. He's got your solution. And if it's under warranty, you'll be surprised how fast you're back in brewing. And if it's not under warranty, you'll be surprised at how fast you're back in brewing without paying half the equivalent of the equipment you already bought. They sell you piece parts at piece parts prices when you need that piece part 2, 3, 4 years down the road. It's just outstanding company. I couldn't appreciate them for supporting this podcast anymore. I enjoy it probably more than you do. That's not saying much because you're listening to me. Check them out, hit the websites, send them an email at info@blickmanengineering.com and just tell them how much you appreciate what they're doing for the home brewing community. All right, back in the sack. All right, my first question here, Glenn with 2 N's, I feel like that's worth mentioning. He writes in, I want to thank Jamil for his recommendation to use airtight pet food storage containers to store grains. I just sampled grains that had in my container that was purchased in 2015. It was Weirman Pilsner malt, which had a date of 2015 on the bag, and the malt was firm and tasted good after all these years. I need to brew something I haven't brewed since 2016, and I'm feeling the itch. Just wanted to share my results with malt storage sharing and Jamil's advice. Sorry, Glenn, I thought you had a question, but thanks for writing in. And I'm not sure which dog food one you're referring to. There's at least 2 series, I think. Huggy, John, you might know there's one that's got a really good seal on it. There's a special name for the top. It'll thread onto the container, or there's even adapters that'll snap on like a 5-gallon bucket and it'll thread onto that.
The Gamma, I think. Yeah, the Gamma lid.
Gammas. And Glenn, if you have those, it doesn't surprise me that 10 years later, that's right, folks, Glenn just wrote us. This is a 2025 question. 10 years later, that your grain is not slack, and it's probably going to make you a damn fine beer. I use a lesser version. I don't store grain for 10 years, but I use a lesser version that is quote unquote airtight. I don't trust it like I would trust a Gamma. It's a very large bin. I can put a whole sack unopened of Weirman in there, latch that, keep it sealed. And the only issue, and Glenn, I'm glad it didn't happen to you. The only issue with any grain is there's a certain amount of weevils, eggs in your grain, almost guaranteed. Mm-hmm. And under the right temperature swings, they will hatch. That is not the fault of your storage medium. And you could say it's the fault of your storage temperature, but it's really the fact that it exists. Your grain has that. Don't freak out. If you bought a brand new sack and that's happened, maybe not be happy about it. But it happens. So, Glenn, thanks for writing in. Huggy, pros, you don't seal up your grain so much. I mean, do you? I mean, you probably don't have time or a need, or
yeah, it depends. Like, I'm on a small system, so I'll just kind of roll up the bag and tape it shut. But yeah, you want to try to keep the humidity and the oxygen. So I've used the Vitovaults, which has the Gamma lid.
It has the Gamma lid. Yeah, that's what I was thinking of. Yeah.
And those were great. They're pest proof as well too, so you have to. So if you do get like the weevil breakout, it'll keep it contained to that one container, and then you can
have
trash
a rack
it
of that in local group. right? You had a wall of the specialty grains in the Fiddle Vaults
Yeah,
at local group. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So you definitely want that like airproof, ant-proof, pest-proof kind of container to keep anything out and keep anything in that needs to stay in, kind of thing. So I've used those, and those work great. Yeah, they work really great. Especially some of those can stack real nice.
Hmm.
Because you can get the 5 gallon lids, and then you get 5 gallon buckets, but then you can stack those buckets. But then if you need a bucket on the bottom, you need to,
You're playing Jenga, swapping them
yeah.
around.
But some of those have like they're angled. The opening is angled, but you can
Yeah.
stack them on each other. And so that's what I had. So I could stack two or three on. I could stack two or three in a row, and still access the bottom one pretty easily. Those are great. I haven't stored grain for 10 years. That's or 9 years. That's
Jesus.
crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. The duration. Yeah. Yeah. My old local homebrew shop in New Orleans, they had the little vaults
Mm.
for their grain, but not for specialties. For specialties, they had an old Jelly Belly dispenser. Now, John, I'm going to ask you. My first question for you is always scientific, but your feedback on anything scientific or otherwise, please. Um, have you done any testing on staling, or people say malt gets slack. I'm not entirely sure what they mean. I know Jamil's told me, because I've never experienced malt getting slack.
Yeah, I've not ever looked into that at all. I also am with you. I don't really know what that means. I mean, have I've brewed with pretty old grain. Back when I was a home brewer, we would buy sacks of grain, but then that would last for multiple batches, and then sometimes we'd go
Hmm.
a few seasons or something without brewing. If I was brewing the exact same batch in between those two times, I would have noticed, but nothing ever popped up to me. But I did
And
have
Jamil,
the Vital vaults
yeah,
that Huggy was talking about with the. Actually, I now
Mhm.
have them in my kitchen. I got dog food in one and rice in the other one.
you
Nice.
can tell them apart, right?
Yeah.
Yes, Jamil asked me this question a couple years ago. Palmer was still on the show, and Jamil asked me, and I told him what I was using, because I live in Houston. Huggy used to live in Houston. It's I hate to say high humidity. It's really high humidity, but I'm from the New Orleans area, and that's like all humidity. So when I say high humidity, it's still 90, 95% when it's at its worst, which is it's still relative to temperature. We're talking hot and humid. And I've not had issue with malt that wouldn't crush because it got soggy, and I've not had issues that I could recognize where I wasn't hitting my efficiency. And I've used these much cheaper bins, moisture-ish tight. Little Vault's far superior to what I was using, and what I would use if I had the space and wanted to put the investment into it. Um, malt stores well. I mean, we're not getting it probably within 6 months from when it's been harvested to start with, and they preserved it well. And Glenn, who wrote in, he's talking about firemen and their sacks. Their sacks are double lined, right? I mean, you got the typical woven exterior, and you got that plastic liner
Hmm.
on the inside of environment. Those bags are the bomb. German engineering on the sack, here in the sack. You can't beat it. Um, so yeah, I find insects are a far bigger issue than getting slack, and you'll see that. You'll see that, and I've even talked with some pros whose names I won't mention unless they want to tell their own story. It's not here on the show today, um, where you might put your malt in the mash and you'll see the wheels float to the top.
Yeah. Gross.
It's something they do. Yeah, yeah.
Then you can just skim them off, right? You're good to go.
Well, John, it so happens that may be the occurrence on occasion. Now, so I mean, yeah. So thanks for writing in, Glenn, about I don't want to do a whole show about the effects of weevils on your malt and the fact that they exist. And I'm so thankful that they don't exist in such quantities that I can't get the malt to make my beer, because making beer and drinking beer is vital to life. And
Yeah, the only issue I had with the old malt was it gets kind of chewy instead of crunchy,
mhm. Did it still convert
Um,
well for you? Did you still get good gravity?
Yeah, it still tasted okay, and didn't the efficiency was the same. But I
So
knew at that point, I was like, all
that's
right, it's
getting
kind of
towards the quote
starting to.
unquote slack. Yeah, that chewy, the
Yeah,
softening,
that's what I'm guessing
and
is that's what they made by the slack. But
and
I haven't had any off flavor, so I don't know if you'd get off flavors or just a muted flavor. I'm not sure what the results
well,
would be.
obviously, if the moisture was a major problem, you start to get mold, which is not good. But
Yeah, so then you could get off flavors from that if you had that. Yeah.
and if it's getting soft, if it's getting tender, you might not get a you won't get a crush necessarily, so you might not get good conversion, which is a problem. So those are
Hmm.
problems you could get from old malt. But what's funny is the malt before they kiln it. You know, when they malt the grain, um, and Mr. Fawcett, Thomas Fawcett's great grandson, I believe, he showed us when it's ready, you can squeeze it, and like the starches kind of will squeeze out.
Hmm.
You've converted what's inside the seed enough. The seed itself has done its enzyme trick to soften that really long chain starch to not as long of a chain starch, and then they kiln it. So at one point in time, you're kind of bringing it back to the pre-kilned consistency, which still doesn't mean it's the best. But if your gravity's coming out of it and your flavor's fine, but you
Yeah.
could be the next step away from it being out of the question. That's a
Yeah.
long way to thank Glenn for such a nice email to Jamil on something close to Vittle Vault's probably gamma lids. Uh, thanks, Glenn. Thanks for writing in. And we're going to take a short break and be right back at it.
This episode is brought to you by Greenlight. Get this. Adults with financial literacy skills have 82% more wealth than those who don't. From swimming lessons to piano classes, us parents invest in so many things to enrich our kids' lives. But are we investing in their future financial success? With Greenlight, you can teach your kids financial literacy skills like earning, saving, and investing. And this investment costs less than that after-school treat. Start prioritizing their financial education and future today with a risk-free trial at greenlight.com/Spotify. Greenlight.com/Spotify.
Back to the beer guys that make other beer guys look like wine guys. Brew strong.
All right, you're listening to Brew Strong in case you fell asleep and woke back up and you've lucked out to have the best brewing podcast on the planet listening, right in your ear. Thank you, Spotify or whomever else has the podcast. Oh, we have a question. Similar. Okay, no. Christian asks, with me today, I apologize. We have Huggy and we have John, and John Hughes has been an outstanding, informative person on the science-y aspects of brewing. Listen to those shows. So, all right, Christian asks, hi, it would be great if you posted all the questions that are covered on the Q&A show in the forum someplace. Then if a listener has more info to share beyond what is covered in the show, they can post it to the forum and the asker could see it as well as others who may need more information. This will help make BrewStrong more interactive as well as be a greater, stronger reference than just the podcast. And it would be searchable too, so you wouldn't have to listen to all the Q&A shows to hopefully find someone who has asked your question before. Thanks, Christian. Well, Christian, step one is we want you to listen to all the Q&A shows. I don't necessarily, I would love for them all to be indexed with the questions so you will listen to the shows. And we thank you for listening, Christian. And number two, sounds like you're looking for an intern position and you're selected, man. You can do this job for us. And then you can post a question. Now, there's been active forums. I haven't checked lately how active the forum is right now on that, Christian. And they are not indexed, unfortunately. It's a great idea. I guess we do need an intern. I'm not volunteering. I don't think you guys are volunteering, right?
No.
Nope.
Sorry.
Yeah, not for what they pay me, which is I volunteer for this show. We do this for the love of the craft, and we appreciate you listening. Thanks, Christian, for writing in. Thanks, Christian, for listening. I hope you continue to listen, despite the fact that I don't intend to index the shows. I think I doubled up a question here, but it's I might have lost. I hope I didn't lose one. All right. John, spelled differently, from Alameda. Is that your neck of the woods, John?
Yeah, pretty close by.
Okay, but he spells it differently, so I know it's not you. Also, I know it's not you. John writes in, "Hi, BS crew. We like that terminology. This is a follow up to a question I asked earlier regarding the fact that I seem to continually brew very dry and therefore harsher tasting beers, regardless of style or final gravity. Golden ales to porters, uh, final gravity, I'm assuming, 1006 to 1016. My question is, could my beers be tasting dry due to lack of sufficient amount of esters? How could this happen? Since I've taken home and fermented beer that was mashed and boiled at a friend's house, see below, I assume it's a fermentation issue. Is my temp controller off? Raincoat dual stage with firm wrap for precise temp control in a fridge, taped temp probe with insulation on top, good process. Or could I have a wild yeast hanging out around that doesn't cause the FG to drop too low, but chews up or suppresses esters? Or what? I'm meticulous about cleaning and sanitization, PBW and Star San, and have even sterilized everything with bleach, followed by extensive hot water wash. So what gives? This issue is driving me crazy. Help. Okay, Christian's given us quite a bit of extra info. I'm going to scan to see if we should repeat it at this point in time before we try to attack this question. I have thoughts. All right, I'll read it out loud so everybody's not just bored. I have been working very hard on dialing in my all grain brewing parameters, which sounds like it doesn't matter because he's taking homework. Following Palmer's book and all the BS shows, that's the way to go. And although my beers have improved in many ways, I continue to brew somewhat lackluster beers. Okay, this sounds like you're going in a different direction, Christian, because dry versus lackluster not necessarily the same thing. They just taste dry, not much sweet malt character, very low ester profile, tend to be so clean they taste a bit harsh, and beers with roasted malts come out on the acrid end of the spectrum. I've used USO5, Y Yeast 1056. That's Chico or Denny's. Chico,
Yeah,
I
it's
think.
Chico.
WLP001, which is Chico. WLP002 is one of the English ales. Is that London Fog or not?
Yeah, I think English, one of the English ales.
Yeah, so that's going for esters there. WLP 051, I don't have that one off the top of my head. And WY 1275, which I don't have that one off the top of my head either. All with the same results. So I did an experiment. I went over to a friend's house who makes excellent beers, and we brewed up a 10-gallon batch of 1042 ESB. I don't know the recipe. On his system, and we split it into two carboys, one from my house and one from his. He pitched 200 ml plug WP002, which I guess that's 2 vials that he got from a local brewery. And I pitched 1.3 liter starter of Y yeast, Tim's Valley 1275 using a stir plate based on Mr. Multi-Calculator. We both fermented at least 4 to 5 days, both fermented at 67F. And my fermentation was very robust, needing a blow off tube. My brew finished in 4 to 5 days, and I left it in the fermenter for 10 total days, at least 4 to 5 days terminal gravity. Okay. Before cold crashing, the yeast did not want to drop. No problem. Gelled and fining, kegging. Friend did not gel. No problem. Mine finished 1013, his 1010. Mine's crystal clear, his a bit hazy. Taste comparison, mine was again dry, and the chocolate malt character was quite strong and in an unpleasant way. I've never heard of chocolate malt being unpleasant. That's interesting. His taste is smooth with some sweet notes and ester profile balance, chocolate malt. A lot of details. Fellas, there's a lot going on here. I have thoughts on ways I can approach this. Who wants to go first?
Yeah, I was gonna say until he said that he did the wort share that maybe his mash was too low or his water was water profile was off or
Yeah, I was
something.
thinking water too. Yeah.
But since he's splitting it, man, I'm kind of struggling. The only thing I can think of, maybe is if he's fermenting way too hot, or I don't know, maybe too hot, too cold. he did mention, maybe getting an infection. Usually, the wild yeast or bacteria, you're going to get some off flavors that you're going to notice and pick up. Um,
Yeah,
I'm kind of
this
stumped on
this
this.
one with the split, his finished at 10-13, and his friends finished at 10-10. Wild yeast will finish below both of those eventually, but I'm not interrupting you or stopping you, Huggy. I'm just throwing some feedback as you go through it. There's a lot to
Yeah,
unpack here.
yeah. I'm still thinking about this one. If someone else wants to jump in.
So
I
John,
mean,
go ahead.
yeah, just like everything, like all of the thoughts that come to mind would be increasing esters, right? Like if
Mm-hmm.
he's fermenting
Hmm.
too hot,
67's warm. Yeah.
if he's got a wild yeast, and if he's saying that he's losing ester character,
Hmm.
I don't know. It's certainly not. He said something about wild yeast that chew up esters, that you're not going to have that. Wild yeast
Yeah.
don't suppress esters. They tend to make more than any of our brewing yeasts. Um, yeah, that's
And
a
I know that Brett can consume esters, but it's a pretty slow process. It takes a while to do that.
Is it, I mean, I know Brett consumes a lot of things. It can even
Right.
consume oxidation. I've been told.
Hmm.
Will it consume esters?
Yeah, as far as I'm taking a brewing class right now, and they were talking about that. It can use the esters as a product for creating other esters. So it kind of converts one esters into another esters, but it's a
hmm.
very slow process. I mean, it's a Brett.
And
So Brett's a
it,
very, it takes like a long time.
and it probably wouldn't be a beer that finished at 10-13 in 10 total days.
Yeah, it would chew that up too. It would
Yeah.
chew that a lot of those sugars up.
So John, and John had asked a question, and John, who's on the call. Um, so I did an experiment, too many variables, um, two
Yeah.
different yeasts, two different pitching rates, same temperature. I don't care at this point in time. It's two different yeasts. That same temperature doesn't even make a difference if you're comparing the Y yeast 1275 on a stir plate to 002 from a local brewery. That's a lot of variables, my friend, and I have a hard time comparing the two data. The 10-13 versus 10-10, it doesn't add up necessarily that his would taste more dry. I mean, his would taste less dry. Yours would usually only taste more dry based on water, but it's the same. It's the same 10 gallons split.
hmm
So the two different yeasts perhaps could have made a difference on that. Where yours had a less malt, you had a less malty yeast, so your beer tasted more on the dry side because it didn't lend that maltiness. Now, it was 1275 Thames Valley versus what was the other one? Then doesn't matter about the yeast. It's a lot.
That
You
double O
gave us
two.
a
Yeah.
you gave us a
One
lot of
thing
question.
One thing I would throw in, I just looked up the 1275 yeast, and the description is this strain produces classic British beers with a rich, complex flavor profile. This yeast has a light malt character, low fruitiness, low esters, and is clean and well balanced. So yeah, maybe back to what you were
Okay,
saying.
there it is.
If you want
Yeah,
to do an
002
experiment,
versus yeah.
try
It's the
use the
same
same
yeast.
yeast,
Yeah,
in two different environments and see how that comes out.
right.
Yeah.
And the other comment was the fact that your friend pitched 200 ml of WLP02 from a local brewery. We don't know the density of that, so he might have pitched it a little tight. It might have been a thinner slurry, which produces more esters as it grows up and does its thing. But also, that's a repitch, and Jamil will tell you, and I agree, repitch produces a better beer. So you're comparing your totally different yeast on the starter to his totally different yeast on a repitch from a local brewery. So giving credit to the local brewery to have good healthy pitch of yeast at a density which we don't know, he's entirely more likely to produce a better beer with his repitch than you are with your first growth of Thames Valley.
Mhm.
But it's a lot of variables. You were approaching the right concept by splitting wort. but then there's too many variables post that, and 67F on one yeast versus 67F on another yeast. In my opinion, it doesn't matter at that point. It's two different yeasts. And I'm not going to look at the packet to say what the packet says that they're both valid yeast. They're just going to act differently. The one thing I could do that I didn't do, Christian, I apologize, is there's a very good spreadsheet out there that tells you what yeast equals what yeast on the planet. And somehow they've done it down to something like the DNA level, John. What am I talking about? When they can
Oh yeah,
characterize.
yeah, like the phylogenetic tree,
Yes.
evolutionary history. Yeah,
But if it's not identical, and I don't care if they say this is you can use this instead of that, that doesn't matter. If it's not identical, it's not identical. And even when it says it is identical, how long has Y yeast been growing up 1275 versus how long has White Labs been growing up 002? And how have they been handling it? Have they been freezing it cryogenically the way John described in the last episode, or have they been regrowing it? Yeasts change over time. The exact same yeast handled by two different breweries, by two different yeast providers. I hate to say manufacturers. It won't be the same. Um, but going back, Huggy was hitting on a bunch of good stuff. Water, salts. That's it. That doesn't matter for your more info, but in general. Also, what I wanted, and I can't comment on it, is your pitching range. 1.3 liter starter sounds like a pretty nice starter on 5 gallons of 1042 ESB. Try less starter. Try to push the yeast a little more.
yeah.
Yeah,
You'll
you're
get more.
overpitching the yeast.
Yeah, you get more esters if you pitch lower.
Yeah.
One thing that's coming up to me, and maybe this is way off, but what is John? What are your serving conditions?
Yes, good point.
Because like if you have your, you're kegging, so you've got a kegerator, if you get your temperature down super low on that, then sometimes, that will mute some of the estery quality, some of the malty quality. And if you're just
Hmm.
tasting the first taste right off of the pour, then maybe that's something that's going on. So I take a look at that. But I definitely echo that, do a split batch, but use the exact same yeast for both of
Mm-hmm.
them. Do the exact same conditions. And then, you know what? Like, certainly when I was a home brewer, I was my own harshest critic and I was always finding out these little things. So do a blind tasting, right? Get somebody else to put them in unlabeled cups and see if you can pick out which one is yours, if you still think you're detecting that, because it could just be a little bit of a psychosomatic thing. Just a thought.
Right. Yeah, another thought I had too was what's the carbonation level? If it's overcarbed, it's going to come across as dry and acidic and pretty harsh tasting. So especially on like an English style beer. So if his carb level is too high, either he's bottling or kegging, that could be another issue.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
I like the blind tasting. That's a great suggestion.
our great friend Jamil, who recently sent me some British ales. I got outstanding porch bomb from him that included ales I just can't get it. I mean, they're not even everywhere in England. And he said, "Oh, let them warm up to 50. Let them warm up to 50." Now, me being me, I'm going to try them when I pull them out of my fridge, which I hold at 40, and I'm going to try them as they warm, and you will sense how they taste, how they differ, how they change as they warm. So yeah, great additions to all the way to the end, all the way to the point in which the beer goes into your mouth. It's constantly there are variables there that you must be paying attention to. All right. So I think we're going to take our second break. Not that I'm counting properly, probably. And we'll be right back.
Are you looking for a simple brewing system that's great for all grain brewing, but everything on the market seems to be full of compromises? Blickman Engineering has the answer. The Blickman Brew Easy All Grain Brewing System. The Brew Easy is a complete system with easy upgrades and a beautiful compact design, perfect for any size brewing location. At its core, the Brew Easy is built on two gorgeous Blickman Boilermaker brew kettles, a high-temperature March pump, and either a top-tier gas burner or the new Boil Coil electric heater. The Brew Easy adapter lid allows the pots to stack on top of each other, forming an efficient, strong, and compact brewing setup that comes in 5, 10, and 20-gallon batch sizes. Upgrade your Brew Easy system with full automated control by adding a Blickman Tower of Power temp controller, and make moving around easy with the Blickman Kettle Cart. The Brew Easy is modular. If you already own a Boilermaker kettle, you can build your Brew Easy by purchasing just the modules you need. The new Brew Easy all-grain brewing system. See it today at BlickmanEngineering.com and brew with Blickman quality on your new Brew Easy.
This episode is brought to you by... Oops! I've got a box of Cheez-It crackers staring at me, and I just wanted that irresistible cheesy crunch. Sorry, that was a total snacksident. What was I supposed to be talking about? So salty, so crunchy, so cheesy. Whoops! Lost my train of thought. I've heard of brain freeze, but brain cheese? I'll just have one more Cheez-It cracker, and then I'll get back to it.
Learning to brew has never been so disgusting. This is Brew Strong.
And we're back here on Brew Strong. You have Huggy and TC as your hosts today, and with special guest John Hughes, who he's phenomenal. You want the intro? Go back and listen. Catch some of the shows. We have great stuff going on here. It's I don't know. These are some of my favorite shows since when we don't have Jamil. Obviously, when we do have Jamil, they are 10x better. He's the man. And we hope to have him back for our next set of shows. All right. Jeff writes in, "Hey guys, I'm a big fan of the show as well as all the others on the BN. I appreciate all the info you provide to help us all improve our brewing skills. And let me tell you, you want us to read your question? That's the intro. That's the intro. Tell us how much you love us. We're going to read your question. That's a joke. We're going to read all your questions, and we start with the newest. That's right. And then we dig deep into the sack to get the older ones, but we start with the newest. I've been brewing for about 3 years now, and I have brewed nothing but ales. A lot of my favorite beer styles are lagers, and I would like to give lager brewing a shot, but it's a little intimidating to make the leap. I'm sure I'm not the only one with this in mind. I think it would make an excellent show theme to outline the various techniques used in lager brewing in general terms, not just keeping the fermentation temp down, but also mash tips, making a giant starter, aging time, etc. As always, I look forward to future shows, and I wish you all success and can't wait to apply the lessons learned from BN. Cheers." All right, so I know lager brewing in general has been covered in shows, but I just let us cover some of the differences. I had the same, I often have the same kinds of feelings, less so because I control my fermentation temperature. But John, you were a home brewer. Huggy, you've been pro brewing 12 years, 11 years?
Yeah, so 13.
If all you knew were ales, but obviously you also know lagers now, what might you advise? What might you tell someone for the shift to make them more comfortable in brewing lagers?
Yeah, I was gonna say my first, as soon as I got a kegerator, a fermentation chamber, I got a chest freezer and turned it into a fermentation chamber with a temp controller. The first thing I did was a lager. I did a Schwarzbier, and then I said, "Oh man, now I gotta wait to brew again. Why did I do that? I should have done that as my second beer." So I did. I think temperature control is critical. I think just for ales too. Yeah, if you can get your temperature control, pitch plenty. You need to roughly double your pitch count.
Mhm.
For doing lagers, for pitching your yeast. Um, yeah, just find a good recipe. I mean, I think you can make a good lager and then give it plenty of time. Ferment it cool, plenty of time. Um, there's a good book, Modern Lager by Jack Henley of Jack's Abbey Brewing on the East Coast, and it's a great book. We're going through it at work right now. We got like a book of the month book club right now with
That's a
at
good
work,
idea.
so we're reading through that one, and there's some great tips in there. And in there, they kind of talk about how there's different ways to lager too. There's not just one way to make a lager. There's several different ways. Um, so yeah, my advice though, yeah, just temp control and time and plenty of healthy yeast. What
Yeah,
about
I
you,
would
John?
say my advice is don't bother brewing a lager unless you're doing a triple decoction every single time. And no, I'm just messing. I mean,
Thanks. That'll get you kicked off the show.
I know. But yeah, I mean, yeah, Huggy said it, temperature control. I think a big one is there's, a lot of lager yeast out there will throw off a kind of a stress product called uh, proteinase A when they are temperature stressed. And so sometimes cold crashing can cause that. So with ales, you can just, cut the temperature all the way down to 31 for whatever you're shooting for. With lagers, you may want to kind of ramp that down a little bit more slowly.
That's interesting because I've been, I hate the term cold crash because I don't cold crash. I chill and I very controlled chill all of my ales and lagers. Um, as not to stress them, I did not realize that the ales could take it more so than the lagers can.
At least in my experience. Huggy, I don't know
Okay.
if you've had the same.
Yeah, I've been trying to do a colder, yeah, slower drop for the temperature, but I haven't noticed. What is that? What is the off flavor? What does that taste? What is that? What do you get out of that?
It's kind of an astringency. It can also lead to a haze, and then maybe a little bit, I don't know, almost acrid kind of flavor.
Mm,
Um, it's just going to be breaking down some proteins, and so you may get some of that, you know, the flavor of some of those amino acids.
mm,
But um, yeah, that I think look into what John Palmer has been talking a lot about, the ability to kind of cut out lagering and just say if you got an extended period of warm maturation. So that's not
Hmm.
like you're heating up your beer or anything like that, but you're just not dropping the temperature as early as one might given the final gravity. But that can allow a lot of that maturation that would happen in lagering to happen a little more quickly. So your turnaround time can increase on lagers.
mm,
Um, and then you may not get. I think that you may not get as clear a beer because a huge part of what lagering is the getting the yeast to drop out and the clarity.
Hmm.
And so if
Hmm.
you're not that concerned with it, as a lot of home brewers are not, a lot of pro brewers are not as concerned anymore nowadays too, then yeah, you can kind of keep your uh, maturation time at warm temperatures a little bit longer. That also will help with your diacetyl. Um,
Right.
Especially the lagers are a little more prone to having diacetyl because of the lower fermentation temperature. You don't get that spontaneous reduction of the alpha-ketolactate to diacetyl happening as quickly, so it's slower developing. So just make sure that you do the yeah, get your diacetyl rest going in there. So keep it at fermentation temperatures for a little longer. You can do a diacetyl force if you're concerned about the amount
Yeah,
of.
I do that on every lager.
Yeah, so you just heat up
Yeah.
some of the beer. People do it in the microwave, and and then you chill it back down, and that heating up will speed up that reduction of the alpha acetolactate. So it'll show you what diacetyl potential there is there. So even if you don't taste it on the beer out of the fermenter, there may still be some of that precursor in there. So I think that's about what I would say for lagers.
So Huggy almost shortchanged it. In my opinion, if you can brew a nail properly, then you can brew a lager properly because you need temperature control for both. And I know a lot of us ale brewers, we start off throwing a carboy in a corner, maybe putting it in a closet, maybe ruining the walls and the ceiling because it didn't go as well as we planned. But you're going to make a better ale with proper temperature control. And you're only going to make a good lager with proper temperature control during fermentation. The timing varies. It helps with some of the modern tools. If you spend the money on something like a tilt or a pill, they're not perfect, but they're indicative of the progress of your beer. Huggy pulls a sample. He can pull gravity off of 10 barrels or whatever your current brew length is right now, Huggy, and it's no big deal. We're brewing 5 gallons. We may not want to pull a half liter off every day to see where our beer is at, because at the end of the day, we don't have as much beer as we'd like to. So these various tools, they're not cheap, they're not free, but they can help you along the process, or just brew it again and pay attention. If you're brewing in a carboy, you have a gift that you may not understand. Being able to watch what the beer is doing will tell you so much about how fermentation is going. I love my conicals because I pull yeast off, but I can't see what's happening in there. If you're brewing ales and you like your ales and you have temperature control, go ahead and brew a lager. The biggest thing John said, and that I picked up on, John, I'm not trying to shortchange what John said, but the diacetyl rest, that's the biggest difference. You've got to have your temperature control, and you should do diacetyl rest. And if you keg it and it's not right today, if you brewed a light lager and you have some yeast hanging around, it's going to make a bigger impact than if you brewed an IPA and you have some yeast hanging around. In my opinion, both need about 2 to 3 weeks to get close to where you want them to taste. Lager a little bit longer. It's just part of the process. You're already out of your fermenter. Just give it some time. So I was nervous about jumping into lagers. Not anymore. I just had to find 5 lagers I want to do in a row with the same lager yeast because I like to repitch. Let's see if I'm right. Jeff, just do it, man. You got it. You're going to make some great beer. All right. So James, who could join us again, spend a little bit. James in the chat. He asks about, we lost the number one answer of the, okay. So you might be able to help us though. Sorry, James, I got your question, and our number one responder to your question just had to drop off. I had dealt with degassing samples for cell counting. I've used a bunch of different methods, including coffee filters, pouring between different containers, you name it, but I'm never quite satisfied. Would love to hear some best practices to knock the gas out quickly before putting a sample under a microscope. This goes back to counting cells, James, Huggy. Huggy's done many times. I've not done. So he's going to do cell counts. He's putting his yeast sample on the plate, but he wants to get it degassed as possible before he puts it underneath the microscope, because I expect gas bubbles under a microscope are just kind of massive and not helping you with your cell counts. Did you have any special techniques or concerns or experience with degassing as you were counting cells?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Those are good methods, what he mentions, at the coffee filters, pouring it back and forth. We also would get a big, I think an Erlenmeyer flask, I want to say, like a 2-liter. And so we take a sample and shake it. Make sure you have plenty of headspace and shake it. And then kind of hold it so it doesn't, make a mess everywhere, but shake it. And then so that'll kind of help degas it pretty quickly. I don't know what the fastest way would be. One of the reasons for doing the cell counting, I always it was always a very meticulous, slow process. So it was definitely not my favorite part of the day, just because of
Did
that.
did you have problems with CO2 as you were trying to I hate to say plate because plating is obviously a different thing. Did you find that you had problems when you were trying to count your yeast when you were trying to put your sample on the slide and put the little cover layer the
Not
homostatometer,
that,
is that
yeah.
underneath or is that on the cover? That's underneath, right? The
The
CO is
humiditometer is the base, and then you have your
the
slip cover
base.
on top.
Slip cover on the top. Okay.
Yeah, I never had issues with uh with carbonation with CO2 in
Hmm.
the sample. We were also though I would try not to I would try to limit the head pressure I'd put on the tank before we would pull yeast though,
Hmm.
because it does put a lot of stress on the yeast. Uh, so we were trying
Okay.
to keep our yeast as healthy as possible whenever we're repitching. So I never saw an issue with that myself.
I James asked this question to me almost 2 months ago. That's which is not that far back considering the entirety of the mail sack. And I did bring it up to John, who had to drop off previously, and the instant thought John had was that the heat of the light on the microscope was causing the sample to hold less CO2. So you're flashing off some CO2 from the heat. Now he
Mm,
didn't say evaporation. He was thinking CO2 holding. I'm not even thinking of the right word. But
right, right.
right. So you'd flash off some CO2 because it can no longer hold as much CO2 as you warm the sample that was on the slide. And so
Hmm.
John's recommendation was to warm the sample before you put it on the slide. Now, this could be an
Yeah.
intricacy, James, of your microscope. Your microscope light might be warmer than others. And going right out on a limb, if you could switch to something like an LED light by any chance, it might not heat the sample as much.
Mm,
No one said that to me. So I could be, well, I am totally taking that out, right out my ass. Uh, but yeah, so if you have like an incandescent bulb down there, maybe you could find an LED bulb for that would be option two. Option one was make sure you've heated it, and we don't want to kill the yeast cells. Obviously, we don't want to bake it, but warming the sample should help it flash off some of the CO2 as well. That was John Hughes' instant response to me about a month
yeah.
back when I brought it up to him.
I could see that whenever we do the cell count, we would dilute the sample down, usually 10 to 1 twice, 10 to 1, 10 to 1 again. And doing so, we were using room temperature water to dilute the
Mhm.
sample. And so it was
Okay.
warming up the sample as we
Ah,
were diluting it. So it was probably degassing as we were doing the dilution. So if he's doing a cell count straight from the fermenter,
yeah. You reading
um,
this? You reading them in the chat, the live chat? Yeah.
uh,
Some straight out the fermenter and some straight from a starter. So yeah,
yeah, so
we're just saying exactly where he's at.
I would dilute it down. You could still do your count. You just got to make sure you multiply by 10 again when, whatever ratio dilute it down. But if you dilute it down with some room temperature water, warmer water, then that might force your outgassing then.
And James, you showed me your setup as you're working on your alt beer. I think you're a pretty techie guy. If you have an IR gun, temperature gun, next time you're messing around with your with your microscope, shoot that spot right above the light. See how warm that plate's getting, and consider trying to pre-warm your dilution water to something close to that, so you get your sample at almost that temperature. Because if John Hughes is right, and it's a high likelihood that he was close to at least one cause, because the dude's a genius. Now, he's very smart and he's very experienced. He is. He's a very nice guy, obviously. But yeah. So you could be flashing off just based on the fact that it's warming up. That could be not helping you at all. So as Huggy's saying, either room temp water, or if your light bulb is overly close or overly warm to your plate, try a temperature check. Seriously, maybe if you can find an LED bulb that won't heat it up, that might make the world of difference for you. I have no idea what's available in that market. I just hadn't looked for it. Everything's LEDs these days, and they last 100 years or maybe 5 days. It's a shit show.
Yeah.
So James, I appreciate you tuning in and asking that question. And you see, the fastest way to get a question answered is just tune in. Join us on Facebook while we're live. Um, Lately, Jamil has been back on the show, and granted, those shows have been better. I take the blame for all of that. He keeps me in check. He keeps my bullshit limited. Um, but he sadly couldn't make it today. It's not a good day for him to make the show. Um, all right, let's see where we're at. I think we take a break and we come back for one more, Huggy.
Sounds good.
All right.
On December 12th, Disney Plus invites you to go behind the scenes with Taylor Swift in an exclusive 6-episode docuseries.
I wanted to give something to the fans that they didn't expect. The only thing left is to close the book.
The end of an era. And don't miss Taylor Swift, The Eras Tour, the final show, featuring for the first time the Tortured Poets Department. Streaming December 12th, only on Disney Plus.
Vitamin Water Zero Sugar has great taste, zero BS, and obviously zero sugar. For those with zero room in their calendar, zero patience for slow walkers, those who get 0 hours of sleep on a Saturday night, have zero filter, zero given, and zero interest in grabbing a plain, boring water. Grab a delicious Vitamin Water Zero Sugar today.
Like the Lance Armstrong of the beer world. Except for that nut thing. This is Brew Strong.
All right, we're back with Brew Strong. It's TC and Huggy with the Mailsack. We are answering questions from the Mailsack. If you haven't figured it out, I have a mandate from Jamil to answer every question back through all of time. And the new questions get priority, by the way. So send us your questions. Send us your feedback. Look, if I'm sucking, let me know I'm sucking. If I'm doing good, you keep that to yourself. That's fine. I don't need to know. My head, look, Blickman fermenters can fit through the door. I'm not sure how well my head could if you give me a compliment because I'm just not used to that shit. All right. So this was a question I was there might be a corollary on this one. I wanted to approach with Jamil, so we might come back and do it again because he's got good experience with it, obviously. Ray writes in, "Hey guys, just binge listened to every podcast from episode 1 to current. Can you talk about nuts? Can we talk about nuts?
Can we?
Can we talk about it? I was drinking a pecan porter and I was curious what other nuts could you put in the beer? I'm not taking that bait, but thank you anyway, Ray. Should they be raw?" He keeps going. Toasted, chopped, powdered. I read that tea bagging and adding it before kegging was a way to get the full nut flavor. There was a variety of things I read by individuals, but I don't know what to believe. I'm curious to hear your thoughts and insight on nutting my beer. You know who you're writing to, Ray. You know what you're writing and who you're writing it to. And I'm just going to give you Ray gets a clap. That was well done, Ray. All right.
Clap.
So yeah, only because I can only clap for one person at a time. So Huggy, brewing with nuts. More than 2 at a time.
So I've done a few. I put a few nuts in the beer. I've done pecans and I've done hazelnuts. Pecans we did. It was a pecan pale ale we did, and we toasted the pecans on like a paper to kind of try to absorb all the oils. You get a lot of oil. Nuts have a lot of oil in them, and so that'll kill your head retention if you add too much. So you want to be careful with that. And then we toasting kind of brings out a lot of those flavors more too. So we did that. The flavors.
When you say pale ale, you mean like IPA type pale ale, or just like pale colored pale ale?
I like the
American
pale ale
ale
without the India. Yeah, American pale ale.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm sorry, I was only clarifying because nuts and the hops. Yeah. Please continue.
Right. Yeah. That was the issue we had is we made this beer and the nuts gave a definitely like a dry. I don't know if it was tannic, but definitely kind of dried the beer out. And so that beer was super dry. After 2 months of aging, it was good, but by then we had almost sold the beer out by then. So you got to be careful with that when you're
I think
using
you
the
hit on
nuts.
something there, though. So some tannins probably fell out in that 2 months, right?
Yeah, I'm assuming it was some kind of tannins or something.
Yeah.
And this
Okay.
was years ago before I had better brewing knowledge and practices. So I'm sure it was super hazy when we brewed it and didn't bother clarifying it. So
And
that
you
was
said
an
you
issue, but we did
you
have a
said
good flavor.
you said you toasted them.
Yeah, those were toasted. That was we had a smoker, and so we toasted them on the smoker basically. So that was good flavor. We got good flavor out of that. And then I've done hazelnuts. I did whole hazelnut that I crushed, fresh hazelnuts, or not fresh hazelnuts, but whole hazelnuts I crushed, and then used them. I like bagged them up and used them in a whirlpool of a stout. I didn't quite get the flavor I wanted though, doing that way.
That was like you said, it was not roasted. You could say fresh, yeah. So off the tree, purchased, cracked the nuts, got the nut out of it, and crushed the nuts, and then you kind of whirlpooled them.
Yeah, I can't remember. We may have toasted those ones. I'm thinking I would have toasted those ones at that time, but
Okay.
we just didn't get the flavor we wanted. I didn't get the flavor I wanted out of them. I don't know if it was just wasn't enough, or if just hazelnut is just not a very strong, flavor. So that was my experience. If I did it again, I would definitely look at some extracts. I know Jamil uses the hazelnut extract to good
Yes, he
effect.
does.
And so I would look at something like that. I know so I have done peanuts too. We've done peanut butter. We use the PB2 for that one.
Dry powder.
Yeah, which gave us a great peanut butter flavor, but we had it absorbs a lot of beer. So we had a lot of losses on that beer.
So that must be a dried product, not just a ground, but also a dried product.
Yeah, that one's a defatted, dried peanuts, basically.
Yeah. Which is why it takes the wort from your beer.
Yeah, and then I've heard
understood.
that there's I heard the LD Carlson peanut butter extract they make is a great top note, so you get a good flavor or a good aroma if you use that in combination with like PB2 or something. So it was great flavor, but we did have a lot of losses on that one. I know LD Carlson, they sell a lot of those at the homebrew shops. That kind of line of
that brand, that packager LD Carson. Yeah, I hadn't seen their nut flavorings though.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So as you had said, Jamil's chocolate hazelnut porter, which I'm not a hazelnut fan, but that beer strikes a great balance. He was buying an extract. I don't know the nature of that extract. I'm sure he would share it if he were on today. But yes, he was using an extract. And Jamil's policy on extract is usually add the extract till you can smell it but not taste it. And you'll get the impact in your beer. Now, I've done a couple beers with pecans, and my approach has always been, I'm from Southern Louisiana, so pecans, we can get them in the shell still. We can shell them pretty fresh-ish. It's still a nut that dried up and fell off the tree. And I did a roasting and a crushing and added it to the flavor. And when I shared that beer with Jamil, he appreciated the beer, and he said, "How do you do this at brewery scale?" Because you can't at brewery scale, but we're not brewery scale. We're home brewers. So
right.
So yeah. So going back
Did
to
you like
this
the
question,
flavor? You like the flavor out of that one?
I did.
That you got?
I did a handful of things that, if I remember correctly, I also ended up with some oak chips soaked in rum on top of it. So it was like all of the above. Yeah.
Nice.
Like a brown ale with some rum soaked oak chips and some roasted pecans. So raw, toasted, chopped, powdered was Ray's question. Ray, I will tell you, powdered will likely give you the most impact if available. But as Huggy's pointing out, if you're buying PB2, that's dried, defatted powder, and it pulls moisture back out of your beer, which means you're losing beer.
Yeah.
But you'll get the most contact.
Yeah, if you can just accommodate for that. Just brew a little
Yeah.
small, slightly larger batch.
Yeah.
Just to realize you're going to have some losses with anything powdered.
I expect raw nuts are going to give you the least impact. And I recommend giving them a toast or a roast, something, and then chopped versus powdered, you're getting more contact, which give you more impact. So you can play with your level of flavoring from raw all the way to crispy, roasted, almost burnt, probably not burnt, and then whole, never, cracked, maybe, chopped, whatever isn't. I mean, if you have a whole buttload of nuts, maybe you only have to coarsely break them up and you get enough flavor. But if you only have a handful, maybe you have to go towards powdering. And you can get like one of those $20 little, they call them coffee grinders that are just a swinging blade that will pulverize a coffee bean and make your own powder and things like that. And so you have options there. I think that gets you where you're going. And let's see, James, who our good buddy in the chat, Huggy, if you put more than 2 nuts in the beer at once, then I have questions.
Hey, it's a medical condition.
There you go. There you go.
That's all I'll say.
All right. I think the nut discussion was more fun than I thought it was going to be, and I apologize that Jamil was not here to.
You would have relished that one.
Bring it home. That's right. That's right. He even had a good pun on just what he had done with that, versus relish. Yeah. All right. So this has been another episode of the Mailsack here on Brew Strong. Our next show, I try to do about one double show a month on Facebook, so you get 2 shows a month that Justin will release through Brewing Network. We have some more Quality Lab shows coming up. We have the Mailsack. It is the gift that keeps on giving. Please keep sending your questions in. Please visit our sponsor, Blickman Engineering. Look, the stuff's great. If you don't like the product, call me up. I'll probably buy it off you because they make outstanding equipment. Note I said probably. I might not need that piece of equipment at the moment. Visit them. Just give them some appreciation. Honestly, give them an email. Tell them how much you appreciate them supporting this show for all these years. And
they're making good stuff.
Yeah, the quality of the stuff. I mean, that's why I get stuck on the words. I don't know if I can just like go off on the parts that they make that I love, or if I just need to appreciate how much they're doing for the homebrew community, because they are, and we should all appreciate them for that. And as they have been doing it forever. I'm looking forward to future playing shows. So Huggy, you just became free again. We missed you last month, so I'm glad you're back on the show, and hopefully in about 4 weeks, or plus or minus, we'll have you, John, and Jamil back on the show for yet another great 2 episodes of Brew Strong. So Brew Strong, everybody.
Yeah, Brew Strong. Thanks, John. Thanks, Travis.